I'm the West Yorkshire Restorative Justice Manager. So I manage the service that delivers restorative justice across West Yorkshire. We work with services across the 5 districts where victims or offenders want to take part in restorative justice. So our particular service works with victims of all ages and with offenders over the age of 18. We work very closely with the youth offending team, who will work with people that have committed crime under the age of 18. We work with all offence types, so there's no particular offence type that we don't work with, and we can work when a victim has initiated restorative justice or an offender's initiated restorative justice. We can facilitate cases when court orders are in place, and we can apply for variations in the court. So we cover a real range of offences and victims and offenders that we work with. The team is made up of 5 staff members with volunteers from across West Yorkshire, and we've got currently about 37 volunteers. So volunteers are really a strong part of what we do and how we work with those people that want to access restorative justice. So what is restorative justice? So restorative justice is a process, and it brings people that have been harmed by crime and those responsible for that harm into communication with each other. It enables everyone affected by that particular incident to play a part in repairing the harm and finding a positive way forward. So for some people, they want the opportunity to meet with that person in a face-to-face meeting. For other people, it might be that they've got specific questions, but they might not want to meet face-to-face. So it might be something that we as facilitators do in an indirect way. That might be a letter of apology. It might be shuttle mediation, where we might take questions back and forth. The process is really about those people that are involved and what they want from that process. Restorative justice is a proven significant impact in terms of victims and helping them to achieve closure after what's happened and for them to move on with their lives. And nationally, 85% of victims who have participated in restorative justice would recommend it. For those that have committed the crime, restorative justice is an opportunity to face the consequences of their actions, recognise the impact that's been caused, and where possible to make amends. The restorative justice is part of the Victims Code. So the Victims Code is about the expectations that victims can expect from the criminal justice system when they've reported a crime. As part of the Victims Code, information about restorative justice should be given to all victims, as well as information about other victim services such as victim support. We've done a lot of work in West Yorkshire to ensure that people know about restorative justice, because how do you ask for a service if you've never heard of it? So a lot of people that maybe haven't understood or don't know what restorative justice is, quite often will question why someone might want to take part in that. For some victims, it's about understanding why that offence happened. So having the opportunity to ask those questions, having the opportunity to explain the impact of the offence. People might have explained the impact to family members or friends, but actually to have that opportunity to explain the impact to the person that's caused that harm can be really powerful. For some victims, it's about overcoming fear. For some, if someone might be in prison and due for release, obviously that can really increase anxiety for some victims in terms of what will happen when that person's released. So having the opportunity to take part in a process where they can get their questions answered and understand what led to the offence happening can be really powerful. If we think about the criminal justice system, when do victims get a voice in that process? If they've got questions or they want the opportunity to talk about the harms being caused, when do they get that opportunity? And I hear some people say that when they take the stand in court cases, they have that opportunity. But that's not about the victim. That's not about what they need. It's about the case, and it's about what that case needs to prove or disprove what happened. Other people talk about the victim impact statement being an opportunity, and this is a great opportunity for a victim to talk about the impact of what's happened. However, there are limitations in terms of how long that report can be, whether the judge chooses for it all to be read out or for certain bits. And most importantly, there's not the opportunity for a two-way dialogue between both parties. So if someone has questions, the victim impact statement doesn't give the opportunity to get those questions answered. What we know is for some victims that go through restorative justice, it can have a really important impact on how they cope and recover after a crime, and it should be a victim's choice as to whether it's something they're interested in. Quite a lot of people ask, why would an offender want to take part in restorative justice? Because actually this is really big, and actually it takes a lot of support and a lot of confidence for someone that's committed a crime to sit in a room or to communicate with the person that they've caused the harm to. So it's really important that us as facilitators, we support victims and we support offenders through that process. For some offenders, it's their opportunity to take responsibility for what they've done. It's about facing up and hearing the impact. Quite often we have people that come to us when the offence was committed, they was using drugs or alcohol at the time, so they might not necessarily remember, or they might be unsure why they did what they did, or they might have a lot of regret and feel it was quite out of character. For some people, they've done offence focus work and they've had a better understanding of how their behaviour might have impacted on others, and so want to opportunity to engage in restorative justice. For some, it's about an apology. For some, it's about explaining why the offence happened. If the offence was unintentional, so that person didn't go out that day to cause the harm that was caused. Or for sometimes when people have been through the court process or the police have made them aware of something specific about that victim, it might motivate them to want to go through that process. So what we know from my personal experience is that victims come to us for a variety of different reasons. They can come to us because they feel that what they need, they can't get as part of the criminal justice system. And when we talk about the outcomes that might have happened as part of the criminal justice system, we can work with people where there's been an out-of-court disposal, where there's been a community sentence, where there's been a short-term prison sentence, through to those that get a life sentence. So while society might view that a lengthy prison sentence has been really helpful for that victim, it might not have given them the opportunity to understand why something happened. Different victims have very different needs. And an example is a death by dangerous driving case that I was involved in. There was two sisters who'd lost their dad. One wanted to talk about what actually happened on that day and the actions that were caused and what the last few minutes of their dad's life was like. For the other family member, she wanted the opportunity to talk about the impact. She didn't need to know the questions that her sister had, but she wanted the opportunity to talk about the impact. And I think that demonstrates that for the same offence, the different needs that people have in going through that. For some people, access restorative justice for closure, and for others, it's about forgiveness. However, it's important that the process of restorative justice is not necessarily about achieving closure or forgiveness. It is a process which might help in moving to that point. But for a lot of victims, that's not why they access restorative justice, but it can help on that journey. It's also really important to understand that offenders can also have experienced harm and have been victims. And we've definitely worked with cases where an offender might be in prison and convicted of a crime, but we're working with them as a victim of a crime against them. So restorative justice is really about working with those people to see what people need and want from the restorative process. So how might you get involved in restorative justice in West Yorkshire? We need to raise awareness more about restorative justice for victims, offenders and communities. We need people to know that this exists and it's something that they can look to take part in. We also, throughout the year, will look at volunteering opportunities, and we know the volunteers currently engaged find it really rewarding seeing the difference that they can make to people's life. If you want to find out more about restorative justice in West Yorkshire, we've got a website which is www.rjwestyorkshire.org.uk, and it's got all our contact details on there. So please get in touch if you want to find out any more. Thank you.